Honestly, it never rains, but it bloody pours in Westminster. The second batch of Mandelson files just dropped. The WhatsApps, the emails, the internal memos, all of the private communications surrounding one of the most genuinely shambolic and shameful political appointments and sagas in British history. And they landed with the kind of thud that only truly embarrassing official documents can. But I can't be the only one who thinks that we've seen all of this before. Not the actual political corruption, that's just par for the course these days, but the kind of rhetoric, this kind of unspoken machination. It's something that TV producers used to think worthy of satirising. We used to make fun of politicians and civil servants, not just because they're fair game or they deserve it, which they definitely do, but because it was funny, and it was a way for the little guy to get his own back, or at least get some insight into the inner workings of the machine. Now, there's nothing funny about corruption or what's going on behind closed doors in the halls of the mighty. Actually, it's pretty soul-crushing. But ultimately, we could all do with a good bloody laugh. And despite the pitiful attempts of contemporary so-called funny men and women, that, like so many other little rays of sunshine, seems like a thing of the past. And I thought we should talk about it. So earlier this week at time of recording, the British government dropped 1,500 new documents concerning the Mandelson appointment, something they've been trying very, very hard not to publish. I'm not going to dive too deeply into the weeds of all this, but needless to say, it doesn't really necessarily prove or disprove anything we didn't already have all but confirmation of anyway, because despite Starmer and friends' best attempts to distract and delay, the truth is plain for anyone who has eyes to see. The back-scratching political positioning at this stage, it just is what it is, isn't it? It's just further proof of how distant the political class has got from the rest of us. But something that's been nagging at the back of my head since we saw Starmer come out about a month ago to try and defend himself has all of a sudden become apparent to me.
That I wasn't told.
Is it just me, or is it just hard to look at this man? He's just so boring and so uncharismatic and...
That Peter Mandelson had failed security vetting when he's appointed is staggering. That I wasn't told that he'd failed security vetting when I was telling Parliament that due process had been followed is unforgivable.
It's been bugging me for ages where I've heard that kind of excuse before, and it suddenly hit me today, this morning actually.
There are those who have argued, and indeed cogently, that on occasion there are some things it is better for a minister not to know.
What are you talking about?
That's exactly what Starmer's leading into there, isn't it? Classic Humphrey, classic Appleby. I think someone in the Starmer bunker has been watching Yes Minister. Let's say it plainly, Yes Minister is one of the greatest British television comedy shows of all time. So if they are nicking excuses, they've kind of gone to a good source at least. And it's got me thinking about something that we're actually missing in contemporary society. Yes Minister ran on the BBC from 1980 to 1988, and it still holds up pretty well today, actually. Paul Eddington as the decent but hapless Jim Hacker. Don't get me wrong, in no way does he resemble anyone in government these days, especially Starmer. Well, maybe except for the hapless bit. Nigel Hawthorne as the peerless Sir Humphrey Appleby. A performance so good that at points it doesn't feel like you're watching a TV show. And the show written by Anthony J. and Jonathan Lynn. And the dialogue is razor sharp in this show. It's surgically precise and it's genuinely funny and genuinely insightful. But what made this show brilliant wasn't just the jokes, although they are very funny. It was how clearly it showed the inner workings of the British government and British political system, from the elected politicians who think they're in charge to the permanent civil service who actually do run the show. All the sort of elegant, civilized and almost gentlemanly way that the machine ensures that real change can almost never happen.
Nothing wrong with subsidising sport. Sport is educational.
We have sex education too. Should we subsidise sex, perhaps?
Oh, could we?
Another great show which gave us a glimpse behind the political curtain came in 2005 with The Thick of It, which basically confirmed everything that Yes Minister taught us, only louder, swearier and more chaotic. Malcolm Tucker and his spin doctors showed the desperate, foul-mouthed scramble behind the scenes. When the machine starts to creak, it proved that while language and technology might change, the game stays exactly the same. Protect the powerful, manage the narrative, and keep the public as far away from real influence as possible.
This is no good for fucking pace.
What's great about putting Yes Minister side by side with the thick of it is that you get that overarching story of the British civil service, and you can see the sweeping changes that society went through that sort of change in the millennium period. So you got that pre-90s representation of Britishness and British society, with the Westminster portrayal of Appleby, calm, collected, gentlemanly, very much that tip of the iceberg metaphor where above the surface everything's calm and collected and fine. Beneath the surface there's a whole lot of thrashing going on, and then you've got the thick of it, which when we shift to that, we see that sort of almost post-Blair shift. After New Labour have made their big sweeping changes, we see a lot more angsty, a lot more sweary, a lot more chaotic civil service, which is ultra reactionary, constantly fighting battles and putting out fires and things. And when you put them side by side, you can get that real through line of British society, obviously through a satirical lens, but you can see how society shifted and changed. No longer have we got that stiff upper lip. It's more, that outward manifestation of angst and chaos, like I say. The reason why both shows work ultimately is they give you that glimpse behind the curtain. You can see the inner machinations of the system, and you can see how its sole purpose is to literally maintain the status quo and protect itself and protect the powerful. And so what can we learn from these great examples of British television gold? Well, certainly we can see why nothing ever really seems to change, why people can vote for sweeping reform decade upon decade, and nothing ever really seems to come from that. At this point, neither side feels catered to, the left or the right. And that's why everyone's at each other's throats all the time. So if Yes Minister and the thick of it has anything to really teach us and really show us, it's that great, grand, sweeping change can never truly manifest, because the people who are actually in control, the people who run our democracy, run our society, that's not really their job. That's not the world that the political class and the civil service have designed and built for themselves. That's why nothing changes. That's why nothing moves forward, regardless of who's calling for it, left, right, up, down, back to front, whatever. Nobody is happy. And that's what Yes Minister and the thick of it are so good at showing us.
You are not here to run this department.
I think I am. The people think I am too.
With respect, Minister, they are wrong.
And who does run this department?
I do.
These shows, obviously, they're just entertainment. They're not political courses. They're not social studies courses. But what they are really good comments on the political system, a political system that has lasted for hundreds of years. But what's really sad about rewatching things like Yes Minister is that comedy from 20 to 40 years ago, their shows and their themes and everything that they talk about is far more contemporary and far more cutting than anything that's coming out of comedy in 2026.
I went to Spain.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I went to Malaga. It was lovely. I was golfing with Stephen Hawking. It's fucking shit. He lied about his handicap.
And that's what I was alluding to earlier. That's what I think we're missing. Because the sad truth is that the kind of sharp-tongued, clear-eyed satire that you get from Yes Minister, that you get from the thick of it, has almost completely disappeared. In fact, it has actually completely disappeared, in my opinion, from contemporary life in this country. Because political correctness, institutional self-preservation, and obsession with maintaining the status quo at all costs has now bled out from the civil service and has now entered the public discourse and culture itself, really. And the result is that we get comedy that should be, essentially speaking truth to power, just completely neutered. The real thing that society lacks these days is those dissenting voices, essentially, which might hold that political class and that civil service to account. That's all been quietly subdued. The uncomfortable truths are avoided at all costs, because having those conversations would be far too dangerous and far too uncomfortable for the people that have built that bubbly, rounded-edged world that they wish to live in. And so that's why these old shows are still funny today, is because not only was the writing superb, not only were the performances amazing, but they were from a freer time, from a freer world where you weren't worried about expressing yourself. You weren't worried about offending anybody, let alone the wrong type of person. And in 2026, as another batch of these files gets dropped, as more excuses get trotted out by the powers that be, when we could really do with that kind of humor again to make us laugh and release the pressure a little bit, instead we get weak, toothless sketches from comedians who punch with kid gloves on, or don't even punch at all, or just follow, the company or the governmental line because they're scared of the backlash. So maybe actually the real lesson from Yes Minister in the thick of it is not nothing ever changes. More so, until we get satire brave enough to speak truth to power, or to just speak the truth in general, maybe we're just better off staying silent. Thank you very much for watching that video. If you took something away from that, please do consider leaving a like, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.